When I was in grade 12, something very beautiful happened. Up to that point, I had always seen my teachers as the ones I had to prove myself to. And in grade 12, I realized, oh, my teachers are now on my side. So everything we're doing, they're doing it to get me ready for provincial exams so I could get a good mark, so I can get into a good university. So all of the exams, the homework, the stuff after school, it's all done with my good in mind. It's now a joint effort. So when I started seeing my teachers like that, I became extremely receptive to everything they were doing for me. So at some point in our spiritual journey, we have to start seeing that God the Father is not against us. He's actually on our side. We've said before, God is trying to transform the world, but He's transforming the world from the inside out. So that means He's going to work on your heart. That means you're going to experience pain because you have to change. So we said last week that there's an upcoming crisis for all of us. That's just part of life. You might already be in a crisis right now. Now, why does God allow that? The second reading gives us a partial reason. It says, "Brothers and sisters, you have forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as children. My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, or lose heart when you are punished by him. For the Lord disciplines the one whom he loves, and chastises every son whom he accepts." So Samuel Johnson, the man who wrote the world's first dictionary, he said people need to be reminded more than instructed, because a lot of us, we already know the truth, you just need to be reminded of it. So in the Bible, God often says, remember, remember. He keeps on telling the Hebrew people, you're forgetting, don't forget. So here, the author of Hebrews, he's reminding the audience, you're all children of God. So we don't know exactly who the audience is here. Most scholars believe that this letter is written to Jewish Christians who are living in Rome. What we do know for certain is that they had been persecuted. Some of them had stopped attending Mass. Some of them were ready to give up their faith in Jesus. So the author is saying, the Lord disciplines the one whom he loves and chastises every son whom he accepts. Has everyone seen the movie from 2018 called A Quiet Place? Yes? Good. Well, you should. It's a good movie. So there's a beautiful example in that movie of fatherhood. So John Krasinski's character, he's extremely loving, very warm, very affectionate to his children, but he's also extremely demanding of them because he's training them to survive. He has to train them to mature. So one of the signs of good parenthood is strong discipline. Good parents are always very disciplined with their kids. Now, it's never with unjust anger. It's always out of love. It's always in proportion. So if I'm going to be a good priest, I have to challenge you. Now, I don't challenge the people at St. Paul's in Richmond, my home parish. They're not my spiritual children. I have to, if I'm going to be a good priest, I have to challenge you. Now, a mother once said to me, she said, it's so hard to say no to your kids because then you see them suffer. Then I realized, oh, that's why she doesn't understand why God allows her to suffer, because she's projecting her own idea of parenthood onto God. So if she thinks giving her children everything they want and always seeing them happy, like that's good for them, she thinks God does the same thing for us. So what's your conception of fatherhood? What's your conception of parenthood? I hope all of you have experienced God's love for you. I hope you've actually felt it. Now, if you have, can I ask, when you suffer, why do you start doubting his love for you? Why would his perfect love for you change just because now you're suffering? When I first experienced Jesus' love for me, when I was 16, he forgave all of my sins. I knew I was still going to suffer. I had no illusion that suddenly God's going to make everything in my life go well. Now, why did I believe that? Because Jesus suffered. It says, the author of Hebrews writes, although he was a son, he learned obedience through what he suffered. And being made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation to all who obey him. So God allows his only begotten Son to suffer, so that he can atone for our sins, he can show us how much he loves us, and so that the Son will pour out more love on the world. So whenever I suffer, I don't feel alone. I do feel really close to Jesus. And if you're suffering, and when the big suffering comes, you will be very close to Jesus. And now you have that chance to show how much you love him. Therefore, lift your drooping hands and strengthen your weak knees, so that what is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. I heard about a man, a Catholic man, during his wife's funeral. He said to everyone that he no longer believed in God. That's very sad. Obviously, he was caught unprepared by his wife's death, but I guarantee you this, he never thought about Jesus ever suffering. I guarantee you that. And I guarantee you he had completely unrealistic expectations of God. So the author of Hebrews is saying, you're children of God, get ready. The Father will not push you beyond your breaking point. It might feel like you're pushed to your breaking point. That's how it feels, but you're not, because His grace is enough. All the tests that are coming, they are designed not to break us, they are designed to strengthen us. So if I could make one practical suggestion today, and it's something I've mentioned before, it's this. Just make a promise when you're ready, a lifelong promise, never to blame God for anything that goes wrongly in your life. Make a promise that you will never leave Him, that you will never leave the Mass. Here's the last analogy. Discipline always seems painful rather than pleasant at the time, but later it yields a peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. The Greek word for trained there is gymnazo. That's where we get the word gymnasium from. So the author of Hebrews right now, again, has that sports analogy in mind that we talked about last week. So when we're young, if you have a piano teacher, you always want the really nice piano teacher, the one who's very gentle. And that's probably what we need when we're young. But if you want to become a great musician, if you want to become a great athlete and fulfill your potential, then you want a coach who loves you and pushes you. And so God the Father, not only is He the best coach, He's also our Father. And we are His children, and He loves us. And that's why He pushes us to be saints.